Welcome back to Unconquerable Minds. I'm Daryl Walker.
And I'm Jason Tracy.
The questions that we ask ourselves is so important.
Yeah, the value of the questions we ask ourselves, and we ask ourselves questions all the time. We all have that internal voice, and we go through life. And the power of the questions that we ask ourselves really make up the difference of the quality of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what we focus our minds on is largely steered by the questions we ask ourselves internally, and we are all always asking questions. We're always asking.
Well, and a good thing that something that hit me last week when you were talking about how you overcame your tragic loss, how you overcame depression, how you overcame alcoholism, was just the difference in the power of the questions you asked yourself. You went from asking yourself, why me? What did I do to deserve this, to what can I do to honor my kids? What can I do to survive? It reminded me of a story that I had with an employee one time in one of my teams, and we found a note, and this was a really low performing employee. Low performing, she wouldn't do what was asked in order to be successful. She was brand new and a team of veterans. And one day in the parking lot, we found a note on the ground, and it had just a list of a few questions that she had asked. And I don't know if she was meaning to talk to the manager or if it was just something that she was writing down and trying to get off her chest. But the question said, why do I get all the late shifts? Why do I have to work on the weekends? Why do I always get the short end of the stick? And when my manager had called me up and said, hey, I got these, this was on the ground, I found this on the ground, so-and-so wrote it, what should I do? And he started going to those questions. The first thing that popped in my head is, why not her?
Mm-hmm.
Why not her?
And to take it back a little bit, so you guys found this paper on the ground. How'd you know who it belonged to?
Well, we knew the concerns. She had the conversations with the manager, and she had raised these concerns that she wanted weekends off, or she wanted. It was a retail location, and she wanted the weekends off, or she wanted to get out early.
Okay.
But again, this is the big difference, and this is a huge difference on whether you're a victim and someone's controlling your life, or whether you have the power, you're empowered to become a creator and learn how to take control of your life. We can't change situations. You can't change things that have happened to you, tragedies that happened to you. I can't change tragedies that happened to me. We can't stop the snow from falling this weekend. Mm-hmm. There are things in life that we can't control, but what we can control is how we respond to that.
Absolutely.
And so, for example, and just a good example on how to start asking yourself more powerful questions, this young lady had written, why me? Why do I get the short end of the stick? And if she would have started asking herself, again, why not me? What do I need to do in order to become a valuable member of this team to where I can get out early? And when you start asking yourself empowering questions like, what can I do to achieve this goal? Who can I talk to that will make me better at what I do? Now your mind starts becoming curious, and it's really like what you said last week when you said all of a sudden the answers started revealing themselves.
Yeah, what you touched on there is extremely powerful, and that was a big part of lesson that I learned over the last year, a big part of my journey over the last year, and that is those questions we ask ourselves, and the way our brains work. Our brains are like a supercomputer, and it's designed that when we ask it a question, it's going to look for an answer. It doesn't matter if we ask a good question, it doesn't matter if we ask a bad question. Our brains are designed to look for answers to whatever we ask it, the good questions and the bad. So for example, if you're asking because we all ask internal questions. Sometimes we don't know we're asking questions, but we're always asking internal questions. And when you're asking yourself something like, why am I not good enough to do this? Or why this? Or why am I so fat? Or any of the questions that we ask ourselves, our brain goes to work and it looks for an answer to those questions. So, we can ask ourselves what I would call a really bad question is, why am I not good enough to be successful? Well, your brain, being that supercomputer, is going to go to work. It's going to look through all your experiences. It's going to look through everything that you've been through in the course of your life, and it's going to try to relate that to something and give you an answer. And to the best of its ability, that's what it's going to do. So it's going to look for an answer. Well, why am I not good enough to be successful? Well, because
What happens when you ask those questions? Do you
yeah,
get
and
answers?
it looks for an answer, and it gives you a lot of answers that just makes you feel worse about yourself.
Yep. 'Cause
And
I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm
Mhm.
not confident enough. I'm not in shape. I'm not,
Mhm.
people don't like me. I'm awkward. And you think of all these different things that hold you back.
right,
When you ask a question, the answers reveal themselves.
the answers reveal themselves, and that's exactly what happens. Your brain is going to go to work to look for an answer to that question, and that question is generally going to take you deeper down into the things that you don't want, the problems that you're trying to get away from, but
Yeah.
because your focus is there, because your internal questions is there, then you're getting more of that. And that's what we have to begin to change. For me, in my experience, I had to start asking myself better questions. How can I honor my kids? How can I make myself better? And all these different things. And when I stopped the victim role and went to the empowerment role, I started to get answers. And I think one thing, maybe a little bit off subject, but what we don't realize is our brains aren't a truth factory. It's not a truth factory. It gives you answers based off your experiences. And that's a different show, but our perceptions are all different, so we can all look at something different and get a different answer. So, and what changes that is the questions we ask ourselves.
It really does. It's easy to be a victim. It really is easy to go and blame others for your circumstances, blame others for the results you're getting. I'll give you a good example, and this is just something minor, but my son, I have a 10-year-old son, and he plays football. And he is his first year playing tackle football this year, and he was not getting a lot of playing time. He can't control whether the coaches put him in the game. All he can do is control his efforts, right? He can go and he can practice hard, and there are two things that are going to happen. Either he's going to get playing time because he gets better, or he's just going to learn and get better. And he may not get playing time this year, but it's a learning lesson, and he can learn and grow and move forward. Well, one day at practice, I would just notice he was not giving his effort. He was, he normally he gives his effort no matter what, and he just wasn't giving his effort. So on our way home, I asked him, "Hey, what had happened?" He was like, "Well, so and so is going to be starting and playing in my position, and so I'm not going to get very much playing time this week." And so I was just really frustrated. So I asked him, "Hey, by you going out and not playing hard, do you think you're going to get more playing time?" He was like, "No." Like, what do you think the coaches see when you're not giving that effort? He's like, "That I don't care, and that I'm not putting my effort in." So is that going to control your playing time? Yes, it is. You can be the victim now and say, "You know what, the coaches just never gave me a chance. They didn't believe in me, blah, 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 blah." But the truth of the matter is that you gave up. You didn't put your effort into it. And so you start asking yourself, how can I get better?
As far as the young lady, though, so where did that go from there?
She didn't work with us very much longer.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate. It's not that she's a bad person. It's not that she might not even be a bad employee, but she was looking at and asking herself the wrong questions. And, and that happens. We all do that. We all throw our own pity parties, or we feel that victim. But I wish I could have that conversation with her and hopefully help her see what she could do differently.
And I want to make sure I'm getting it all here. So this young lady worked there for whatever period of time, and these were things that she was expressing. Why was she always getting the short end of the stick?
Yes.
Was she getting the short end of the stick?
Well, and so, yeah, she was working weekends, and she was working late shifts. Again, she was a newer sales rep, but that doesn't even matter. She was a newer sales rep and a team of veteran sales reps. So you come into the picture, and you have all these veteran team that's performing. who's gonna work the longer shifts.
Mhm.
We've all put our time in jobs, and when you're newer, you know, it's just the fact of the matter, you're not gonna come in and get the all-star schedule. You know, you're gonna come in and you're gonna have to put your work in and prove yourself. The difference to where she could go on her route would be, hey, I'm surrounded by a team of veterans. How can I get to their level? How can I get better? If my manager's telling me that I can do this to be successful, I need to make calls and I need to do X, Y, Z in the sales process to become more disciplined, to become better at my job, and she tackled that, do you think that she could earn a weekend off? Fact of the matter is, we told her, if you do these things, we'll start looking at and seeing your effort and give you the weekend off.
Okay.
But it's so much easier when you're talking to yourself and you convince yourself that someone's just out to get you. You know, why me? What did I do to deserve this? You're not asking good questions. You start seeing that person as a villain.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe they are out to get you. But the fact of the matter is, what can you control?
Right.
You can control getting another job, but a lot of people look at that grass is greener on the other side, and then they take themselves to that new company and they find out that it's not always greener, you know. And I've been there as an employee where I question management, or, you know, why do they want me to do this? And then I've been on that other side where I'm asking to do these things because I know what it takes to be successful, and I can show you how to succeed. So going back to sports, because I'm a huge sports fan. When Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team, what if Michael Jordan would have said, why me? Why does that coach have it out for me? I'm never going to make the team because he just doesn't like me, or I'm just not good enough. Why am I? And then he starts talking to himself out of ever picking that ball back up again. Michael Jordan didn't do that, though. Michael Jordan said, how can I get better?
He didn't quit and go to
He
another
didn't
school.
quit and go to another school. He stayed at that school, and then we know the rest is history. He ended up making the team. He ended up getting a high-level scholarship to North Carolina, one of the top schools in the country. Became Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players, if not the greatest basketball player of all time.
To me, the greatest,
Me too.
arguably. To me, the greatest,
But it was all his mentality. Michael Jordan is also known for having one of the best mentalities of any athlete of all time. When he stepped on that court, he was not willing to lose. And because of that, he put in so much practice time. He asked himself, what can I do to get better?
Right.
And then he did that.
And his brain looked for answers.
His brain looked for answers.
Yeah. And that's what our unconscious minds do.
So just erase the negative questions. Just like I did off on this whiteboard, start flipping your questions around. Instead of asking yourself, why me? Ask, what resources do I have to make the situation better? Who do I know? Who can I talk to? What can I do to get better? Those are different kinds of questions that you can ask yourself. So we all have so many resources.
What I experienced through my journey, in changing those questions, and what we also have to realize that we already have a set of internal questions that we already have as default questions that we've established over the course of our lives. So for me, when I tried to go to a better place and I tried to ask myself better questions, I really had to put a focus on the questions that were already there, and you really have to focus on what you're doing, because your default is to go back to those bad questions. So if you're not paying attention to the questions that you ask, your default is going to go back to those bad questions. And even when you're not thinking about it, when you're not focused on it, you're back to asking those questions. So we have to be cognizant of the questions that are already in there, so we can change those questions.
Yeah. Hey, this is easier said than done. You know, again, we all have that internal voice in our heads and sometimes we want to have a pity party. This is easier said than done, but I'm going to tell you right now, in order to have success in life, this is the way it's said and this is the way it's done. So go out there this week, challenge yourself. When you start asking yourself powerless questions, and you're giving the power to somebody that's making you the victim, you're giving the power away to circumstances or bullies or other people. Start asking yourself questions like, what can I do to change my situation? Ask yourself powerful questions and let us know. Drop in the box. Let us know how your week went.
The last thing I'll add is thoughts are things, and the questions that we ask ourselves determine our thoughts. the thoughts that we have determines the direction that we're going to go in. So if internally we're asking ourselves the wrong questions, if internally we're asking ourselves disempowering questions, that goes to work in our subconscious. And we're going to start heading into the direction of the thoughts that we were thinking, and that's established by the questions that we were asking. So we got to put a focus on those questions. And that is our show for today.
Awesome. Well, join us back again next week on Unconquerable Minds. Looking forward to it. Go out there and make this a fantastic week.